Welcome back to Dog with a Bone podcast, Unleashed bonus episodes. These episodes are for you to listen while I work hard on season 2. For those who have not already listened to season 1, you can find my investigation into the unsolved murder of John Bernie Burnside on Spotify or wherever you listen. All 10 episodes are available to you right now. This bonus Unleashed episode is going to be different from the other 3 I have released, and you're going to find out in a moment why. But this unsolved cold case that took place in Toms River, New Jersey in 1974. Suzanne Garden was only 14 years old at the time of her murder. Suzanne was found 2 days after she was last seen with her friend. And in this Unleashed episode, I have her friend who's going to tell us more about what happened on that day. Suzanne's manner of death was strangulation. And how I came across this case was a woman had reached out to me for season 2 submissions. And what you're about to hear is an interview that me and my team did with Suzanne's friend, who was with Suzanne on the day of the murder. Now, if the killers had their way, she would have been the second victim. However, they didn't plan on her bravery and her and Suzanne's plan to get away. For obvious reasons, I will not be releasing her name or identity at this time. But before we get started with the interview, I want to let you know that I did not alter the interview so that it flows nicely. The reason is I really wanted you to hear our interview in real time and as the conversation naturally developed. So let's get right into it. Thank you for reaching out, telling us your story, and we're here to see if we can help.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and I appreciate you. Before we even start, I appreciate you. I have to be honest, I haven't finished your podcast yet.
Well, then this interview's over. Then we're done.
I saw the news report on you, and then I checked you out on Facebook. So I saw your videos before. You know, I'm not, like I said, I'm not done yet. But you impressed me so much with how much you cared about people who are seemingly forgotten that I reached out because I felt a connection. I felt like maybe you could help.
So I just kind of want to ask some information here in regards to the case. I know you live with this every single day, but I also want to be mindful of your feelings and your emotions. And so I don't want to go anywhere that's going to be uncomfortable for you. Okay. I started out our interview with one of the questions I had from doing some basic research and on the day that Suzanne was found. In the reports, I see that Suzanne was found 2 days after she went missing. Now, that doesn't mean she wasn't already there for that period of time. She just wasn't found. What day were you with her that she went missing?
It was Sunday. So that was the 27th, Sunday. It was a Sunday. There was a pep rally at our school, and we were at the pep rally. And it started to get a little chilly. These 2 guys walked up and started talking to us. And so they offered us a ride home, and that's how we ended up with them. On our way from our school, they were supposed to be taking us home. But we were going to hang out first, we decided, for a little while. So Suzanne's mother was very strict about her coming home after school, checking in. So before we went to hang out, after we left the pep rally, we stopped on the highway across from Guilford Park where she lived. She ran across the highway, went home, changed her clothes, said, "I'm good with my mom," and came back out to the truck. And that's why she had different clothes on.
Okay. And I actually was getting there because I saw then that she was seen downtown Dover. Is that what it was called?
Dover Township. South Township.
That she was seen there. Okay. So, and that's what I wanted to ask you, those 2 things. She was killed that same day that you guys were together.
Yeah.
So you left this pep rally, you go, she changes clothes, which is where you have that discrepancy. She comes back.
Right.
I really wanted to know where everyone sat as they drove around town. Were you both in the back seat?
No, we were all in the front seat of the truck. It was a pickup truck.
Four people?
Yeah, it was the driver who was the blonde guy, and then it was Suzanne, and then it was the other guy, and then it was me by the door, by the passenger door.
Can you tell me what kind of truck?
I can't. I don't remember.
No. Okay.
Like I said, if you could get a hold of my interview with the police after, just not long after her murder, all of those details would be in there. But like I said, I guess my PTSD or just my brain in general has protected me all these years from a lot of that information, which is why I'm now trying to recover, what I can.
In the text messages, she had mentioned to me about the killers following a script on how they were going to commit the murders. You mentioned a script that they followed. Like they were telling you what they were going to do, and they did it exactly as that.
Right. And because of that, and because when I had my first interview with the police as a 16-year-old girl, one of the things that they, how they try to push people into confessing. Well, I guess that's what they were trying to do, playing games. And they were throwing these photos down of her body as it was found at the crime scene, of her body in the morgue before she was cleaned up, of her body after she was cleaned up. So I could very clearly see all of her wounds. And because I saw all these pictures, the exact description of what they said they were going to do to us, I could see that they did. And because of that, her murder, not just the details of what I was there for, but the actual murder plays in my brain over and over. Because I can imagine it clearly from what they told me and from what the police implanted then in my memory. So it's important that this is solved. And it doesn't matter that I cry or I get upset or my memory, I mean, not my memory, but my thoughts trail off as we talk. It's important for me to push through that. Because if I don't, I will be like this forever. And I need to get justice for Suzanne. This wasn't done for any other reason than for the fact that they told us that they wanted to kill us so that they could watch the life leave our eyes. They wanted to see what it felt like to kill someone. So they didn't stop at Suzanne, and I know damn well they didn't stop at Cindy. And the police are protecting them because they're family members to somebody high up. They said they were a family member to somebody high up in the police department and in the prosecutor's office. So, and I do know from the detective that was working with me that when he got into the files, I think I may have told you this too, the boys' names were actually removed from the record. They were scratched out with pen, both names. And where you're supposed to initial any changes you make in the record, any changes that were made or anything that was scratched out was not ID'd. Nobody ID'd anything or initialed anything. So it's obvious that they're hiding something. But one thing I can say too, because I don't want to forget this part, the knife that they found at the scene, if they were to actually DNA that, I know that they would get at least the one guy's DNA. And not only that, but there's a darn good possibility that they'll have mine too, because he handed me the knife and there was a break on the side of the knife. It was like plastic or mother of pearl. I described it back then as mother of pearl. And there was a break and I drew the knife for the cops. And when he handed me that knife that he was going to kill us with later, like I thought about trying to reach across to stab one of them, but there was a second one. There's no way I could do anything with that knife other than to just look at it and touch it. And I ran my finger over that break in the knife. So I know that some of my skin cells had to have dislodged in that knife.
So that's actually what one of my questions for you is. They have the knife still?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, but they did have the knife.
Okay. And they never sent it off for testing.
Not that I've ever seen anything reported on.
Okay.
And I was afraid to, bring it up or call them now and mention it because I don't want the knife to then disappear.
So help me with this. And it's okay if you say, I don't want to. The two boys, do you know their names?
I don't remember them. I gave them to the cops. And then I thought because I did the right thing then that they would take care of it. I know that it wasn't my fault, but it just bothers me that how could I ever forget any parts of it at any time? But
well, it's part of PTSD, I'm sure you know, and your survivor mode and how you handled that. So we'll call him Blonde Boy. So their names are in the case file. They're now edged out. Blonde Boy, Suzanne, you, and the dark-haired guy. Is that right? He had dark hair, the one next to you?
Right.
So the dark-haired guy has a knife and he takes it out?
No, the blonde guy had the knife, the driver.
The blonde guy had the knife.
Right.
And then what was he driving and talking, or what? How did that?
All right. So what happened was, like I told you, we stopped at her, across from Suzanne's house, and then we went to the place where we were going to hang out, which was past my house, on the other side of town, basically. So it was like a wooded area that you could drive into, sandy wooded area down the shore off the road. So we drove into this area. We were hanging out and the guys were drinking beers. We were out of the truck, just hanging out and talking, kind of getting to know each other or whatever. And there was nothing scary. They weren't threatening at all at that point. And it started to get a little chilly. We didn't want to drink any beer. Neither one of us liked drinking at all. And to be honest, we both said, well, we don't drink, but if you have a joint, we'll smoke a joint. And they didn't have that. So, we just kind of hung out. They drank their beers, threw them in the back of the truck. Then we started to get a little colder. So we all got in the truck. They were going to take us home. While we were sitting in the truck and they're talking, I don't remember how exactly they started the conversation. But then I remember them telling us that they weren't taking us home, that they were going to take us to this place that they had gotten ready, and that they were going to kill us, that there was two of us and two of them. There was one of each of us for each of them, and that they were going to kill us. And we just thought they were joking. And then he pulled out his knife and he handed me his knife and told me that's what they were going to use. And so again, not scary at all. I just, I looked at it. It's like got a broken handle. It's, kind of like not a switchblade, but like a buck knife, I guess you'd call it, like foldable knife. So, and like I said, it had the like mother of pearl on it, and on the, I believe it was left-hand side of the knife, it was broken and it was like a cutout. Then I gave him his knife back, or he took it back from me, whatever. He got back in the truck and he started driving away. Now, my house was less than a mile from where we were at that point. And he was kind of driving slow down the street, and I was telling him where to stop from, turn the corner at my house. I didn't figure they were going to drive me to my door. I was only a block off the main road. But as I started to tell him the next corner is mine, rather than slow down, he started to speed up. And Suzanne and I looked at each other, and that's when we got scared. And I started telling him, you got to slow down, let me out of the car. And he said, that's when they told us they were not going to do it. They had already told us how they were going to kill us. Anyway, we're not going to go there yet. So then Suzanne and I just kept looking back and forth at each other. And as he's driving down this road, she's telling me to jump, just jump. And I couldn't figure out how. I didn't know. I mean, I knew I had to unlock the door. I was going to have to pull the handle. I was going to have to throw all my weight into it. And however I fell, I was going to fall. But I was going to get out of that truck. She kept telling me, jump, go for help, jump. So I leaned over like this and I pulled the lock behind me. And as I pulled up the lock, I clucked, trying so that they wouldn't hear the sound. And I couldn't believe it. It worked. And I looked over at her again, and he didn't want to leave her. She just kept telling me, go for help, go, go. She was in the middle. It was like I said, it was the blonde guy driving. Then it was Suzanne. Then it was the tall brown haired guy. It was me by the passenger door. I was able to like muffle it with my jacket, my shoulder. I pulled up the lock up, put my hand on the door, leaning it there, just kind of being nonchalant and looking at Suzanne. And they were just looking straight ahead as we were driving. So they weren't even paying attention to like, looking at each other, kind of mouthing stuff to each other. And finally what she did was, instead of just saying jump or go ahead, go get help, she said, please jump. And that's what did it for me. And I picked up that lid. That thing handle. I quickly gave it all my power and I rolled out of that truck. Ended up on my hands and knees. I got some road rash, but it didn't matter. I was able to roll up and stand up quick enough to see Suzanne going down the road in that truck, looking out the back window, mouthing something to me. That was the last I saw her. Sorry. I went home then. I was staying with some people down there because I actually lived up north. And I ran to use their phone, and they were very holy roller Christians. That's actually how I met Suzanne. Her parents made her go to this church that where they did like speaking in tongues and other things that aren't like the mainstream. And the family I was staying with made me go with them, and neither one of us were of that persuasion. So we met and like hung out in the parking lot during church or whatever. So yeah. So I went in the house and we weren't allowed to use the phone because the Christian thing to do was that children don't use the phone unless it's an emergency or an absolute necessity. So when I went to call the police, they took the phone away from me and told me not to use the phone. And I explained what was going on and they didn't believe me. So they wouldn't let me use the phone to call the police. The next morning, Suzanne's mother or someone from her family, I believe it was her mother, called our house and asked about Suzanne. And the mother of the house told them that she wasn't there. And they would ask me what happened. And I told her. And she didn't believe me. And I don't know what she said to Suzanne's mother at that point. But I wasn't allowed to speak to Suzanne's mother. And nothing was done about it until, I know her mother had to have been sick with worry during those 2 or 3 days. But she didn't find out anything about her daughter until her body was found. And that's horrific. I know now that there's no way they could have found them anyway, because we didn't know where they were taking Suzanne. But for a long time, it really bothered me that I couldn't let the police know that she was with them and what they were going to do,
You had an idea of kind of where they were going, but not really.
We just knew they were going to go to another area. They didn't say. I figured it was going to be like a wooded area, where they had privacy. But I had no idea where they were taking her. Could have been anywhere.
What is so heartbreaking in all of this is your continued fight to do the right thing and wanting to tell and scream and get help. And even when you're trying to report, you survived and you jumped out of a truck, nobody listened.
Right.
And I am so sorry for that. I am so sorry that you weren't believed and nobody did anything and they haven't done anything and no one's listening to you.
I'm sure I was believed by the police department. I'm sure that they just chose not to
do anything about it.
Yeah, to move on. I think they're just playing games in the press.
Did you ever see the boys again?
No, right after this happened, actually, I was so terrified because I thought they were going to come back for me, knowing I was the only living witness, that I came back up north, came back to my family up here. And to be honest, I never went back there. Never. I avoided that place like the plague. When we were looking to buy a house, it was the best place we could afford a house, and I would have loved to live down the shore, but I couldn't live there because I never knew when they might show up, because I don't remember their names. I can't even look to see if they're alive or dead anymore. I can't look to see if they're in power somewhere. I just know that somebody is protecting these two young men, and they may do anything to protect them at this point.
Well, and one of the things that my team and I were just looking at is, hopefully the people that were protecting them were older. Maybe they've died. Maybe they've lost some of this power that they had. Times have changed, right? And that's not even 50 years old. And so these killers are now in their early 70s. So really, who's going to put their rear on the line? One question we also had as a team was, did they kill again?
Absolutely, I agree.
And so when you say that you're confident that they continued to kill, is that just your feeling that this was, or do you know of other cases that happened?
No, I don't know for sure. I have been looking. I've been researching other cases, both near and far. I don't know for sure.
What we do know is that another girl, Cindy Leslie, who was 18, was murdered a month after Suzanne. Cindy had graduated from Toms River South, which is the same high school that Suzanne went to as well. Cindy was found also in a wooded area and had a very similar manner of death as Suzanne.
I know that they didn't stop. In my heart, I know that for a fact. I can't prove it because there is no proof that I have, but I'm sure. Because not only that, but they had immunity. They had complete carte blanche to kill. They could take out as many as our children, as many of our young women as they wanted. And there was no stopgap for them. So why would they stop?
That's what I say.
Because they wanted a thrill.
And I'm curious, what often happens if some powerful people and the kids do something like this, not murder, but something, they will send the kids somewhere else, right? To get them out, to save them, to protect them, go to boarding, right? And come back when it quiets down. And that is actually one of the big signs as an investigator that you can show that interesting, hey, a month after Cindy and Suzanne were killed, this guy, family sent him to this relative's house until it calmed down. And then he comes back, right? So there's things that you can show them moving around as to get out of town for now, right? Because you're going to be identified. So they had to remove them. How big was Toms River back then in 1974? What would be the population, you say?
Oh, I wouldn't know, but it was just really kind of starting to build up. Where I lived, I was in like a little cul-de-sac area, kind of. It was a portion of the town, how when they started to develop Florida, they had these swampy areas and they built them up. That's kind of what Toms River was like back then, South Toms River in particular. It wasn't real big. If I remember correctly, the highway only had 2 lanes on each side of the road, or 1 lane. I think it might have been 2. It wasn't built up at all. The police department, now they have this big giant building, but it was a little tiny building before,
Your high school was pretty small?
Yeah. Compared to where I came from, yes. But there was still a fair amount of people because we had 4 high schools back then. I believe there was 4. I know there was North, there was South. I believe there was East, and I don't remember a West. So we had 3 schools for the town, and depending on where you lived is where you went to school. So I went to South Toms River High, and it was a small school, But like I said, we had a lot of kids, and branched out over 3 high schools.
So these two guys went to South. One was on a baseball team. Okay.
That's what they told us. I don't know now after the fact if I believe that. They could have gone to any of the schools. But at that time, that's what we were told, and that's what I believe.
Do you remember their Letterman jacket they were wearing?
I actually do remember that.
So does it look like a Toms River Letterman jacket?
Yes.
Okay, so, and one said baseball and one was what?
Basketball. The other guy said he was basketball because he was really tall.
Okay.
I don't know.
And did they say whether they were seniors or juniors or?
Yes. They said they were seniors because I was a junior and Suzanne was a freshman. No, they told us One was 17 and one was 18. There's also a possibility they could have been in a class that just graduated, the one that graduated with Cindy. But I'm just telling you what they told us. That
So
they were still
maybe graduated in 73 instead of 74.
Yes.
Right. It's possible.
Once we had an idea that these two individuals went to Toms River South and possibly graduated in 1973 or 1974, and were also part of the basketball or baseball teams, Vicki and Eula started pulling up yearbook photos online as we're having the conversation to see if we can show her those photos and if she recognizes any of those players.
All right. I don't know that this means anything because I don't know that it's him, but I got goosebumps looking at him.
You did?
Yeah. Like I'm stiffening up, and I don't know that it is him, but I'm reacting to his photo like involuntarily.
Now, if we look at this photo and the one that's in the newspaper,
I don't know why I got goosebumps looking at him, and I started to get chills. That's like one of the panic attack symptoms I used to have 20 some years ago. So I don't know. Did you see, I know you had to have seen the composite drawing that they made of the blonde guy that was seen with Cindy.
Yep.
Take off the mustache, and that's the guy that was with me and Suzanne.
Suzanne was beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not joking. I just looked at this and I think it's him. Unless it's in my brain. But let me show you.
Okay.
That just gave me a weird feeling because this looks like an older guy and he's not old. He's a teenager.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the guy.
He didn't have that hair and he didn't have the mustache, right?
He didn't have the mustache then. He had
But
a little bit of like boy hair, on his face, like kind of blonde, but he didn't have a mustache.
When you see this photo, does it remind you of the guy on the baseball team?
Yes, a little bit.
A little bit. Okay.
Yeah. The first time I saw that photo, though, immediately, that's when I knew that the same guy that killed Suzanne killed Cindy.
I think you'll know when you know. Like you are having a physical reaction. So I think it's pretty close, but I think we want to obviously be sure.
Right.
So,
right. And I'm not sure.
It's a starting point, right?
Okay, so let's get to his name. And if we see the senior picture.
Okay, where's that at?
I'm getting there.
Oh.
I've only waited almost 51 years, but she wants it immediately.
That's how she works.
This is how I work. They know this. They have to tell me things over and over again, and then I'll be like, where is it? Like,
This is another reason I picked you, because you were funny. So we can laugh while I'm doing this. So while it's really hard physically, mentally, emotionally to be able to smile or laugh or giggle at all, kind of takes a lot of the pressure off. So this is good.
Good. She goes on to tell us what happened when she reached out to the cop and how he kept her secret for 2 years.
Right, because when the prosecutor's office came to talk to me after I was talking with this cop for 2 years, and he had to, he told them that he was working with someone that, I was a victim, a witness, whatever he told them, and they told him to bring me in. He had already put his retirement off for 2 years to stay on the force because he said it was the first case he ever had when he came on the force and the only unsolved case he had. And he would really prefer to solve that case before he retired. When he told them that I existed and he was in contact with me and they made him bring me in, they told him he could leave after he brought me in. He wasn't even allowed to stay during the questioning of me. They told him to go. The prosecutor's office, the man and the woman came in from the prosecutor's office, sat down with, I think it was like the chief of police or whoever he was. They asked me a couple of questions. I told them what the day was like. This is when they decided that I wasn't with her that day. I was with her the day before she was killed. because I told him that the day was a nice day out. I told him, it was overcast, but it was kind of nice. I mean, we were teenagers, for God's sakes. We had a pair of jeans on, a t-shirt, a denim jacket on, and we were comfortably warm. We didn't freeze because it was a chillier day or whatever. It did get, and that's why we left. And then it got even colder once we were in that little, cutout area with those guys. So we put our jackets back on and got in the truck. They put on the heat. We talked for a little bit, and then what happened. But
about the weather, I mean, you weren't wrong. So they were trying to say you had the wrong day.
Thank you for keeping me on track. So when I told him what the weather was like that day, and it was a nice day. It was a nice day for us. They told me, no, I was wrong, that we were together the day before she was killed, not the day she was killed. And I'm sorry, but I'm not going to mistake the fact that the pep rally was on a Sunday, not a Saturday. I'm not going to mistake the fact that she wasn't missing on Saturday. She was missing and disappeared in this truck on Sunday. I'm not going to forget the knife they put in my hands. I'm not going to forget the description of what they were going to do to us. And I never forget those pictures the cops showed me. That's part of the worst part of this. They should have never done that.
No, you're too young.
They interviewed me at the Elizabeth Police Department in New Jersey, not the South Thames River Police Department the first time.
Why?
Because I was living in Elizabeth. So they came up here to interview me. So I was interviewed in a room in the Elizabeth Police Department by their cops. I don't know that Elizabeth would have kept any record of that. And to be honest, I'll tell you, one of the things that I noticed about them, the tall guy with the brown hair, he was very kind of greasy and grimy and mousy looking, just kind of yuck, like for a teenage girl. Even as a 66-year-old, he would be kind of yuck. But the blonde guy was kind of cute, in my opinion, at that time, So he was they were non-threatening. But the blonde guy I remember as being cute for a teenage girl, so. And I would see him as cute back then. They told us, even if we survived this and went to the police and told them, gave them their names, that they would never, ever be brought to justice because they had family in high places in the police department and the prosecutor's office.
Did you ever take pictures of all the scuffs from your jumping out of the car?
Oh, no.
Do you know your good friends that might remember that?
No, to be honest, I didn't have a lot of good friends down there. I had just moved to the area in like August.
Okay.
Got settled into where I was staying in September. Sue and I became really fast friends we had actually met first through a girl named Michelle. And then we went to the same church and, that's how we became really good friends. But no. But I did run into a couple people on the Toms River page, I think it was, on Facebook. And I did have a messenger conversation with someone that knew her in school. It was the mother knew her in school. The girl's mother knew Suzanne in school. And I thought about taking that further, but at that time I didn't. So she was good friends with Suzanne, though, the mother. So there are other people that were good friends with Suzanne. I just really didn't know a lot of people that I remember from school.
Do you remember if she was sexually assaulted?
Suzanne?
Mm-hmm. Or Cindy?
I don't know about Cindy. I do know that Suzanne was not sexually assaulted in the normal way. What they had told us was that they were going to, they didn't use the word rape, but basically they were going to shove a tree branch inside of us. So basically, they were just going to rape us with a tree branch. And from what I
recall, if that happened?
Yes. They were also going to shove leaves down our throat. And that was also done, from what I'm told. And from what I remember, from what I was told by the police back then, she was not sexually assaulted. She was not raped. They did find the tree limb in her. And they did find the leaves in her throat. She had been assaulted around her breast. I believe she was, they pinpricked her basically with the knife, just the torture thing. And I remember them saying that someone had ejaculated on her chest. Sorry.
So there was DNA.
Yes. And there's absolutely DNA of the one guy on that knife. And like I said, mine
on her body.
Yes. Yes. I was told that there was semen on her chest.
Did they collect that?
I don't know, Melissa. I mean, I wasn't on the police department.
So I'm sorry. Let me just back up for a minute because my mind is blown right now. You're telling me, because I read in the paper that she was not raped. Right. You're telling me that they found a tree branch in her vagina and they said she was not raped.
Yes.
That is rape.
1970s male cops, what are you going to do?
That's absolutely rape.
But in their opinions, if she was not sexually assaulted or raped with a penis, it's not rape. She was just attacked.
Well, now they've pissed me off because that's absurd. That's absurd. Okay. So she was raped. We know that one of the killers ejaculated on her. Was Suzanne buried or cremated?
Yeah. No, she's buried.
And she's buried there in Toms River?
Yes.
So she wasn't actually stabbed to death. They actually choked her.
From what I understand, it was from the asphyxiation from choking. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
because like you said, the injuries were more of just torture of not like deep wounds.
Right. I do believe they stabbed her, though, like a deep stab as well.
Oh,
but
okay.
I believe in the breast area, it was more, shallow wounds.
Poor little girl.
Yeah. That's what gets me is, we were children. I mean, I was older than her, but we were children, for God's sake.
I can't imagine being 14, 15 years old, sitting in a police department and knowing what happened, knowing that I jumped out of a car. And then they sat there and they just kept throwing down pictures of her dead. And it's just, and knowing what happened to her because they told you exactly what they were going to do to you.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened.
Right.
I just can't imagine how fucking heartless somebody would have to be to even put a kid through that.
Yeah. And one of the things that comes up when I have the flashbacks too is I don't just see what happens. Like, I'm in terror for Suzanne, knowing what she had to have been feeling and what she was thinking. And
praying to God that you would show up.
Right.
Yeah,
praying to God that help would come soon because she's sent me for help.
Right.
Yes. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
I know that for a long time I had survivor's guilt thinking that I could have done more. I know now that none of this is my fault.
It is not your fault.
The only reason that this has not been solved is because the police department didn't want it solved, or the prosecutor's office.
Somebody's protecting their boys.
Right. And that's why I'm wondering too if protect myself.
I'm wondering too, because I know, so did they have a really good sports team?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I have seen this before, and especially here in Marysville, there were some boys that had screwed up and put a fake deer target out on a road, and somebody swerved and wrecked and died. And they tried to protect them boys because they were star athletes.
Yep, that happens all the time.
Yes, so that could be another angle of star athletes.
Yes,
they were going to go into college. They had these great scholarships and they had all this stuff going for them, and now we've got to protect them because they fucked up. Yeah, and it would be interesting too if they did go to college. Did something happen in their college?
Right. I should probably also mention, because it just came into my head. There's an author, Peter Vronsky from Canada, and he's working on something he calls the Jersey Girls murders. With what the heck is his name? Richard. The hell is his name? He's in prison. So he's working with him right now in the prison to close all these New Jersey Girl cases. And they've closed a couple of them together. I spoke to Peter and told him that if this guy confesses to Suzanne's murder, don't believe him because he is not her killer.
I saw his name listed there, and I put a question because in the report it said that they couldn't confirm that he was, which told me he wasn't. And
was
you
not.
and I would have figured that you would have known that he was in prison if that was the guy. So I actually, that's why I had his name here, is because I actually just read that they had went and talked to him.
Yeah, he was too old, number one, to have been the guy. But I've seen pictures of what he looked like back then because I did look into him, of course. He's not the guy.
But you would, like, he went to that high school. Like, these guys were in your high school at a pep rally.
Even if they didn't go to our school, to South, they were somewhere in this, they knew something about the Toms River system intimately. Like, they may have graduated the year before. One of them graduated the year before. One was still in school, but maybe he was in North. I believe it should have only been our school because there was a big rivalry between the schools too. Between the individual North, South, and East or whatever. There were rivalries between them for sports and other things. So I
could see somebody coming over from a different school though, too.
Yeah.
And if the guy, another thing that was mentioned in some of the not police reports, some of the news reports, was that this guy was seen arguing with Cindy on the side of the road. There is no way in hell that she would have been arguing with a guy. I mean, she might have been fighting with a guy she didn't know. There's no way she would be standing there arguing with a man that she didn't know to the extent that they described. She had to have had some kind of a connection with the guy. Him going or knowing her through school would be a good reason.
Yeah, I read that she was familiar with him.
Right.
Now, do you think, I'm wondering if she maybe wasn't like dating one of them.
I think they were trying to abduct somebody else. Cindy, and one thing I noticed is that Suzanne and Cindy look very much alike. They have an MO.
Yeah.
They are very much the same height, the same color. They look very similar. They have a similar victim that they want to take.
Victimology.
Their whole demeanor, do you think they had this planned the whole time? Were they drunk or were they drinking for courage?
I think they were drinking for courage. I only remember them having like 1 or 2 beers. They were absolutely not drunk. They were very clear-headed.
And they also both told you that they had already had the place ready for you guys.
Right.
So this was planned. This was premeditated. It was.
And the fact that they told us they wanted to kill us to see the light leave our eyes. They wanted to watch as the life left our bodies and drained out of our eyes. That wasn't a spur of the moment thought. That was something they were thinking about, and planning and dreaming of.
Which one said that?
The blonde. He was the one with the knife.
Was the blonde the shot caller, the one in charge?
A little bit more than the other, but they worked really well together.
So the blonde here is the one driving this in the sense of the shot caller.
Right.
Okay.
But I think that not just did they have it planned out in their own heads, I think they had sat down and planned it out together. I have no doubt in my mind that they had a script that they were following between the two of them. They knew what they were going to do. I think the fact that they were able to get 2 victims, one, as they said, for each of them, and then it kind of boiled down to only one victim, might have screwed up their script a little bit, but they still, I think that what they did was completely planned out ahead of time, but I think it was planned together. They were each going to do the same thing to their own individual victim, but it didn't work out that way.
Some people might say, and this is my response to that, well, their MO is to take 2, 1 for each. So for Cindy, they only took Cindy. Well, my response to that is they learned their lesson. Yes. Managing and controlling 2 victims is very difficult, no matter if you have 2 people. You got away. They're not going to screw that up because you're a witness.
And you know what, though, too, is they screwed up, too, big time, is they didn't sit on the outsides.
Right.
Why did he not sit on the outside?
So the 2 girls couldn't be together.
Right.
Right. So that way she couldn't open the door. He screwed up not doing that.
Yep.
I thought you would ever jump. I mean, they didn't plan out that.
Right, right. And as you can see, I'm smiling because, I'm so thrilled that I did.
You're a fighter. You're an absolute fighter. And Suzanne, fighter. She saved you.
Yes.
And by doing that, she was hoping you were coming back, and people failed. People failed. Adults failed.
Right. Exactly.
And it can't happen anymore.
The one thing that I know that they could have been lying to us about anything that they said, but I also lean towards the fact that most of what they said was probably true because they didn't expect us to survive.
Yes.
Plus, they knew that even if they, in their opinion, even if one of us did, they would never be brought to justice. They would be protected.
Yeah. Our conversation goes back to how she found out about Cindy's murder, and then when she saw the photo, the drawing of the man seen arguing with Cindy before her murder. Her mom immediately called the police department.
When she saw that somebody from my school was murdered, she didn't know about Suzanne. She saw the Cindy part, and she brought it up to me and do you know this girl? And then, of course, I read the article, and I thought about it for a while and realized that I had to tell the police because they were going to stop killing. So I called. My mother called actually for me. And
so your mother believed you?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, she did.
I'm glad.
I am too.
Thank you. My mother and father both believed me. They took me to the police station. They made sure that I gave my story.
What's so frustrating, and I said this before, is that you've been trying to do the right thing for 50 years. You've been screaming at the top of your lungs. Yeah. Like this little girl is still in you, yelling for help and yelling and trying to get people's attention, and you're ignored. And that is what bothers me. We continued our conversation for another 30 minutes, but then I discussed the next steps with her. I first really wanted to thank her for trusting me with her story and reaching out to see if I would consider her case for season 2 of Dog with a Bone. I explained that I would start digging right away to see what I could find out. To be honest, my biggest concern was being able to connect with Suzanne or Cindy's families, but also anyone who might have known them given the murders happened in 1974. I joined every possible Toms River page I could find. I joined the high school reunion pages. But unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of information about Cindy or Suzanne or anyone who knew them. I then reached out to the Toms River South Library to help me track down Suzanne's mom. I was coming up empty on all ancestry and news article websites. Toms River Library got back to me and confirmed that they didn't find anything more than what I already had found in locating Suzanne's mom. Unfortunately, it was at this point that I decided I couldn't move forward with this case for season 2 of Dog with a Bone. But if you know me, you know I'm never done, and I'm never done trying to help and hold those accountable. I told Suzanne's friend that I was doing these Unleashed episodes, and why don't we put this interview out as one of those episodes? This way, the episode could be shared on all social media, and maybe we would be able to reach those people I needed to find. And if this worked, and we had people responding and reaching out, maybe this could be a season 3. She agreed with this plan and understood, and so here we are. Here's my call of action to all of you. If you know of any information or anyone who knew Suzanne Garden or Cindy Leslie from Toms River South, New Jersey in 1973 or 1974, please reach out to me. But I also ask this. Please share this Unleashed episode on your Facebook pages or any group pages that you have, because the thing is, people move away. There could be somebody who lived in Toms River South in 1974 who knew Suzanne or Cindy or knew these boys or heard something, and they live in another state. So please share this for Suzanne, for Cindy, and Suzanne's friend. Thank you all for listening to one of the last episodes of Unleashed, and I'll see you back in the dog pound for season 2.